Become a premium member on RealCatholicTV.com today. Not only will you learn about the one true faith, just think of all the new friends you'll make.
The ACLU is at it again, resulting in a loss of federal funding for one Catholic charity. Some lawmakers are folding to Muslim activists, forcing some states to embrace Islamic law. And a new how-to book has some wives taking a beating. Those stories and more just ahead on Catholic News Roundup.
Catholic News Roundup is brought to you in part by PewSitter.com, your online Catholic newspaper for the third millennium, CatholicMediaCoalition.org, in line with the Church, online with the world.
And TheAmericanCatholic.com, politics and culture from a Catholic perspective.
Hello and welcome to today's edition of Catholic News Roundup. I'm Matthew McAuliffe. Unconstitutional funding. A federal court judge says that because a Catholic charity group refuses to refer refugee sex slaves and prostitutes for abortion and contraception, any federal funding of the organization is unconstitutional. The ruling concludes a federal lawsuit filed by the American Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts against the Department of Health and Human Services, or the HHS, saying for the government to contract with a Catholic institution that refuses to provide a, quote, full range of services is a violation of the First Amendment. U.S. District Court Judge Richard Stearns wrote that such a contract violates the amendment because it gives a religious institution millions of dollars to use in imposing its beliefs on others, who may or may not share such beliefs themselves. The lawsuit was filed by the ACLU to ensure that after Health and Human Services pulled federal funding from the USCCB to continue its charity work to refugees, the Catholic Church would not receive a similar contract from the government again. Sex abuse trial update. One of 3 priests being tried in the notorious Philadelphia sex abuse scandal is pleading guilty as the criminal court case takes a dramatic turn. You may remember 3 priests are being tried for sexual assault in a landmark case prosecutors say could allow them to refile priest abuse lawsuits thrown out years ago because of the statute of limitations after past jury reports revealed a large number of unaddressed sexual abuse cases in the Archdiocese. Of the 3 priests on trial, Father Edward Avery filed a last-minute plea of guilty late last week, leaving Monsignor William Lynn and Father James Brennan left to be tried this week. A lot of focus is on Lynn, who was in charge of priestly assignments from 1992 to 2004, as he faces a long-term prison sentence if convicted for intentionally overlooking the abuse going on around him and for not exposing Brennan and Avery after hearing complaints of abuse concerning their behavior. Bishop Coerced, an underground Chinese bishop appointed several years ago by the Holy See, is being detained, along with his chancellor, to attend what the government is calling, quote, learning classes. An anonymous source told UCAnews.com, quote, their release depends on whether they accept the government's religious policies, end quote. Bishop Peter Xiaozu Min, 49 years old, was appointed to lead the underground Catholic Church of Wenzhou in 2007, and local government officials are quoted as saying if the bishop and Father Zhang are, quote, intelligent enough in their learning, they will be allowed back soon. The Communist Chinese government and its officially approved arm of Catholicism, the Chinese Catholic Patriotic Association, continues to try stamping out Orthodox Catholicism, not directly answerable to the political body. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a few seconds.
Catholic News Roundup is brought to you in part by NewOxfordReview.org, the voice of Catholic Orthodoxy, in print and on the web, and RenewAmerica.com, expanding the influence of America's grassroots in the cause of freedom.
Shutting down Sharia. American resistance to the invasion of Sharia law into the U.S. court system is waning in some states as it begins to take shape in others, while lawmakers around the country consider banning the enforcement of foreign laws in their courts altogether. Minnesota and New Jersey have killed such bills in their sessions, caving to criticism of the proposed policy, which is also failing in Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Iowa, Mississippi, and New Mexico, though some may possibly be revived next year. Recently, Richard Thompson of the Thomas More Law Center sat down with us in our Michigan studio and had this to say about Sharia law in American courts.
So the only way you're going to protect against this from happening, and that is start passing legislation that the American law for American courts that prohibit judges from applying Sharia law, Islamic law, to Americans in the United States if that law violates a fundamental principle of our Constitution or fundamental human rights.
The fight lives on this year to ban Sharia as 13 other states, including Oklahoma, are pushing anti-foreign law bills in their governments after South Dakota passed the law earlier this month, joining Arizona, Louisiana, and Tennessee in banning Sharia law from their courts. Wife-beating 101. In traditional Sharia fashion, the so-called religion of peace is making its marriage practices known to readers in a newly published book that instructs a Muslim man how and when to beat his wife. The book, a gift for the Muslim couple, was published in India and written by a man described in the book's foreword as a, quote, prolific writer on almost every topic of Islamic learning, end quote. The author tells his readers, quote, the husband should treat the wife with kindness and love, even if she tends to be stupid and slow sometimes, end quote. Saying in another part of his book, her husband may scold her, quote, beat by hand or stick, or even pull her around by the ears to keep her compliant. The book tends to highlight the male-dominant nature encouraged by the practice of traditional Islam, which has led to honor killings, rape, and abuse of women by Muslim men across the world. Most alarming is the fact that the book has been very successful in its launch. Media reports it even flying off the shelves in Toronto, Canada. I'm Matthew McAuliffe. Thanks for tuning in today. Be sure and tune in tomorrow for your daily dose of Catholic News Roundup right here on RealCatholicTV.com. Also be sure to check out The Vortex, where Michael talks about the devastation of Catholic morality. And just a reminder, from Roman Forum, you can see a full-length interview with attorney Richard Thompson of the Thomas More Law Center by becoming a premium member. Michael Voris recently sat down with Mr. Thompson in this latest edition of our interview program, Roman Forum, to be released this Sunday. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to tell all your friends about us. And as always, God bless you.